behind the smile. The untold struggles of Donny Osmond's rise to fame. For millions, Donny Osmond will forever be the epitome of the clean-cut teen idol. His boyish grin, wholesome charm, and family-friendly persona once dominated the American pop landscape. But behind the polished performances and television spotlights was a far more complex reality, one riddled with isolation, psychological strain, and a quiet desperation that haunted his formative years. Long before social media offered celebrities a platform to share their personal battles, Osmond carried the heavy weight of fame in silence. In a candid interview with Closer Weekly in 2021, the pop icon reflected on the darker side of early stardom. "I was just so lonely," he admitted. "You go back to the early 1970s, and you've got literally thousands of screaming girls at those concerts yelling your name, but then you return to a quiet hotel room or a bus. I learned what loneliness really is." It's a revelation that contradicts the glossy image fans projected onto him. To the world, he was living a dream. But in truth, Osmond was navigating a life of solitude, discipline, and emotional turmoil, all while smiling for the cameras. The pain behind the curtain. By the age of 8, Donny was already performing internationally, but not even the thrill of adoration could erase the ache of homesickness. During a tour in Sweden, the young entertainer penned a heartfelt letter to his mother, pleading for comfort and reassurance. What he received in return, however, was not solace, but punishment. According to Osmond, his father, George Osmond, a former Army sergeant known for his strict discipline, responded with a harsh beating and a lecture about gratitude. In an interview with The Guardian 2 decades later, Donny did not seek sympathy. "I got over that quickly and realized my father is not perfect, but he did the best he could," he said, reflecting on the experience with a kind of stoic grace. It's a striking example of how Osmond has always tried to reconcile the pain of his past with a deep loyalty to his family, a trait not uncommon among child stars raised under intense scrutiny and rigid expectation. Understanding fame's emotional toll. Osmond's experiences have given him a rare perspective on the pressures of youth fame, one that resonates with newer generations of pop stars. When Justin Bieber released his haunting single Lonely, Osmond was one of the few veteran performers who immediately understood the emotional weight behind it. "I remember crawling into a ball in a corner and crying my eyes out from loneliness," Osmond told People. "So I know what Justin's going through. You have to go through hell and back." The statement is more than empathetic. It's personal. Osmond's adolescence wasn't spent in classrooms or with friends. It was spent on tour buses, under makeup lights, and behind the mask of America's sweetheart. From has-been to headliner again. By 21, Donny had sold millions of records, headlined a hit TV variety show with his sister Marie, and captured the hearts of a generation. But in the cruel calculus of the entertainment industry, he was already being dismissed as yesterday's news, a has-been, long before most young adults have even found their footing. The fall from idol status was swift and unforgiving. Osmond faced an industry eager to label and shelve him. It would take more than a decade before he could reclaim the spotlight on his own terms. "It's a curse when you hit it big as a kid," he shared in a 2022 interview with Fox News. "Everyone wants to keep you in that pigeonhole. It's very difficult to break out of that teeny bopper career." But Osmond did break free. Through grit, resilience, and the unwavering support of a loyal fan base that never forgot him. His comeback was not the result of reinvention through scandal, but rather a steady, earnest climb back into relevance. The pressure to rebrand and the decision to stay true. In the years following his decline in mainstream popularity, Donny Osmond received no shortage of controversial career advice. Publicists and industry insiders encouraged him to change his name, or even engineer a tabloid scandal, perhaps an arrest, to jolt his image out of its squeaky clean mold. The suggestion that the public wouldn't take him seriously until he shattered the very image that made him famous. But Osmond, ever the pragmatist, rejected the idea. "A life in the tabloids wasn't for me," he said. It was a pivotal decision, one that distinguished him from the flood of former child stars who resorted to self-destruction in the hopes of adult credibility. Instead, Osmond committed to evolving on his own terms, slowly building a career that would eventually encompass Broadway, television, and Las Vegas residencies. The man behind the legend. Today, Donny Osmond's legacy isn't defined by scandal or downfall. It's defined by endurance. His journey has been one of constant reinvention, grounded in humility and the kind of emotional intelligence rarely seen in the world of pop royalty. He has transformed from a boy who once sobbed in a Swedish hotel room to a man who now openly shares his struggles with anxiety, fame, and personal identity. More than just a singer or performer, Osmond has become a symbol of resilience in the face of typecasting, and a mentor, by example, for younger stars facing the same crushing pressure of premature fame. And perhaps that is Donny Osmond's greatest triumph. Not the records sold or the screams of teenage fans, but the quiet, powerful dignity of someone who never let the spotlight distort who he was at the core. The long road to redemption and love that endured Donny Osmond made a vow early in his career. He would reclaim his place in music not through controversy or shock tactics, but through authenticity. "I decided long ago that I wasn't going to do it with scandals, trickery, or promotional campaigns," he told Fox News. "I was going to do it with my music, which is a really difficult way to do it. But it happened, and it took me 10 years. I wanted the music to speak for itself." It was an uphill battle. Reinvention without theatrics is rare in a culture that rewards chaos. Yet Osmond was determined to defy the narrative that had boxed him in. "And then you just say, 'Give me the strength to just play these cards and make something of my life,'" he said. A mantra that became both his personal prayer and professional creed. A marriage that defied the industry's expectations. In a world where fame often fractures families and relationships, Osmond stands out as a rare exception. The puppy love heartthrob has remained married for nearly 5 decades to his teenage sweetheart, Debbie Glenn, a commitment nearly unheard of in Hollywood, let alone in the fevered world of 70s pop idolatry. Yet, even that decision wasn't without its professional consequences. By 19, Osmond knew Debbie was the woman he wanted to spend his life with. But when he shared his intentions with his father, George, the response was sobering. "Well, there goes your career," George told him. "But this is ushering in your personal life." It was a trade-off Donny never regretted. The couple wed in the spring of 1978, and though his solo career stalled shortly afterward, he wouldn't return to the charts for another 10 years, he insists the decision saved him. "Debbie is an amazing person to be with," he told The Guardian in 2017. "If I hadn't married her, I'd have been a mess. Now I had someone who understood me and with whom I could build a future together." In a business that often chews up young talent and spits them out hollow, Osmond found his anchor in a quiet, enduring partnership. "So life is great," he added, "and I don't want to lose that." The price of fame, a near disaster. During Osmond mania. Of course, being adored by millions has its dangers, particularly when fans lose their sense of boundaries. At the height of Osmond mania, the hysteria surrounding the singer could turn physical in an instant. One such moment nearly changed his life forever. While visiting Manchester, England, Osmond was swarmed by a crowd of ecstatic admirers, among them a young woman charging toward him with a pen and autograph book in hand. "She wraps her arms around me," he recalled in an interview with Metro, "and the pen came around and hits me right in the eye. It was an accident, fueled by pure emotion, but nearly devastating in its outcome. She had no idea. She was just overwhelmed in the moment," Osmond said, still visibly shaken by the memory. But I was very lucky. I didn't lose one eye and get blinded in the other. It was close to a disaster. This encounter highlighted the fine line performers walk between intimacy and intrusion. For Osmond, it was a painful lesson about the costs of being idolized, and a reminder that the image of invincibility fans project onto celebrities is often a myth. The stigma of nostalgia, rejection by a new generation. By the late 1980s, Osmond's clean-cut reputation had become so stigmatized that simply being associated with him could be seen as a professional liability. Rock musicians, producers, and collaborators feared that even a whisper of involvement could tarnish their street cred. Guitarist Phil Collen of Def Leppard learned this the hard way. After collaborating on a track with Osmond, he was warned to remove his name from the credits altogether. In the eyes of an industry obsessed with reinvention and rebellion, Osmond had become a symbol of what was passé. Too pristine, too polished, too perfect. And yet, Donny Osmond remained unbothered. While others sought relevance through shock value or self-destruction, he was quietly carving a new path, one defined by craftsmanship, perseverance, and a deep-seated belief in the power of music to heal and uplift. The price of perception, image over talent. Donny Osmond has never shied away from the fact that, in the music industry, talent often takes a back seat to image. One striking example came in the early 90s when he collaborated with Phil Collen, guitarist for the mega-successful rock band Def Leppard. The unlikely pairing emerged from Osmond's genuine admiration for Def Leppard's Hysteria album, so much so that he asked Collen to contribute a guitar solo for his own record, Eyes Don't Lie. The result, by all accounts, was a standout performance. But instead of being celebrated, it was quietly buried. A few weeks later, I got a call from him to say that we had a problem, Osmond told The Guardian in 2007. He couldn't have his name on the album because Def Leppard didn't want to be associated with me. It was a moment that stung. It's a sad situation, he reflected, but music is 80% image and perception. It was a harsh reminder that even raw talent and the respect of your peers can be eclipsed by public perception. Joseph and the struggles behind the curtain. Professionally, Osmond's role in Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat was a triumph. He performed the title role more than 2,000 times over 5 years and was chosen to headline the 1999 film adaptation. But behind the shimmering costume and Broadway lights was a man in crisis. To the outside world, it was another career renaissance. Inside, Osmond was unraveling. Speaking with People in 2022, he opened up about the paralyzing anxiety that consumed him during this chapter. "It's like you're standing in the middle of an intersection," he said, "and here comes a massive semi right at you at 90 miles an hour, and you can't do anything about it. I would walk on stage knowing I was going to die. It was horrible." The stage, which had once been his sanctuary, became a minefield. Panic attacks would surface with no warning, and each performance felt like a battle for survival. It was only through the steady support of his family, especially his wife Debbie, that he was able to endure. "My wife was my rock through that whole time," he said, "because without her, I don't know what would have happened to me." Osmond's openness about his mental health struggles is a rare act of vulnerability in a culture that often expects celebrities to maintain a facade of invincibility. His message is clear: seek help. "So many people fall into a trap of desperation and depression," he told People. "I've been there, and you can't just brush it off. There is light at the end of the tunnel." The most devastating critique of all. If Osmond had been spared the cruelties of the schoolyard thanks to a non-traditional upbringing, the press more than made up for it. Fame, especially the kind acquired at a young age, attracts a level of scrutiny that borders on sadistic, and Osmond felt that sting early and often. During an appearance on the British show Loose Women in 2016, he recalled a particularly scathing attack that has haunted him since his teenage years. "I'm one of the biggest teeny boppers in the world," he said, and Rolling Stone magazine comes out with an article which says, "The worst day in rock and roll history was the day Donny Osmond was born." It was a brutal blow for a boy barely old enough to vote. "A teenager is just trying to figure out who he is," he explained. "That's the ultimate bullying. It really hurt me." The jab wasn't just personal. It was symbolic. It reflected an industry that refused to take him seriously because of his background, his values, and perhaps most damning of all, his decency. For decades, Osmond has been mocked for his clean image and Mormon roots. He has never been a darling of critics, but he's learned to wear that criticism as armor. "And it's like," he added, smiling with quiet vindication, "in your face, everybody. I'm the last one laughing." A family in mourning and on stage. In February 2010, the Osmond surname once again made headlines. But this time, it wasn't for a new musical achievement, a Las Vegas show, or a chart-topping album. It was for something far more painful. Michael Bryan, the adopted son of Marie Osmond, just 18 years old, had died by suicide after a long, silent struggle with depression. For a family whose public image had always been associated with joy, harmony, and entertainment, this tragedy was a devastating blow. The pain wasn't just private. It was shared with millions who had grown up watching the Osmonds as the embodiment of televised happiness. But what surprised everyone even more was what happened next. Just days after her son's passing, Marie Osmond made a decision few could understand at the time. She returned to the stage. Together with her brother Donny, she resumed their Las Vegas residency at the Flamingo Hotel. The announcement stunned many. How could a grieving mother so recently struck by tragedy perform, smile, and sing in front of a live audience? The answer wasn't shallow. For Marie, the stage wasn't a place to escape her grief. It was a place to survive it. It wasn't about ignoring the pain, but channeling it, refusing to be consumed by the darkness that loomed over her. In a candid interview with Entertainment Tonight, Donny Osmond offered a rare glimpse into what went on behind the curtain. "Our dressing rooms are right next to each other," he said quietly. "I can hear her crying, and that hurts." Then, with visible admiration, he added, "What's amazing is that just minutes after she cries, she walks out of her dressing room perfect, ready to perform." That contrast, the woman breaking down in private and the artist shining in public, captures the silent strength that defines Marie Osmond. She wasn't keeping up appearances. She was resisting collapse. "I admire her," Donny admitted. "She's managed to pick herself up and keep going." Later, Marie would share a sentiment that struck a chord with grieving parents everywhere. "I had to choose to keep living for my other children." It was a heartbreaking and powerful admission, because when everything in her soul begged her to stop, she chose to stay. She chose to be a mother, a sister, a performer, even with her heart shattered. Michael Bryan, whom Marie had adopted as a baby, grew up in the spotlight, under both public attention and silent internal pressure. In the years that followed, Marie spoke more openly about the importance of mental health awareness and compassion for young people struggling with depression. But even with all her advocacy, nothing could prepare her for the void Michael left behind. The days following the funeral were a mixture of tears, flowers at the theater entrance, letters from fans, and a kind of silence only known to those who've experienced sudden loss. But the music played on, not out of obligation, not because of a contract, but because, for Marie, each note became a small act of hope. For the audience in Las Vegas, the energy was different. Everyone knew what had happened. Every song felt more intense, every smile more courageous. Some wept with her. Others applauded not for the show, but for her bravery. Marie Osmond's return to the stage after such a profound personal tragedy stands as one of the most poignant moments in entertainment history. It's a reminder that performers hurt, bleed, and need light in the dark, just like the rest of us. Donny's support was vital. Every night, they didn't just sing together. They held each other up, not with words, but with presence, respect, and sibling love. What started as a nostalgia act became, without meaning to, a testament to human resilience. The Osmonds, known for their talent and discipline, showed the world something even deeper that year: their capacity to heal in the public eye. Because sometimes life doesn't let you retreat. Sometimes the only way to keep breathing is to keep singing. And that's what Marie did, with tears in her eyes, but standing tall, with a wounded soul, but a steady voice. She became a symbol for countless people who've lost, who've suffered, and who, like her, had to make the hardest decision of all: to go on. Grief under the spotlight. The Osmond family's poise amid personal tragedy. In the entertainment world, the adage, "the show must go on," is often spoken lightly, sometimes even glibly. But for the Osmond family, that phrase took on a heartbreaking gravity in 2010, a year that would test not only their resilience as performers, but their strength as human beings. That February, the Osmonds were blindsided by unimaginable loss. Michael Bryan, the 18-year-old son of Marie Osmond, died by suicide after a long battle with depression. The devastating news broke headlines and sent shockwaves through fans and the media alike. For a family that had spent decades in the public eye, its image synonymous with smiles, music, and showbiz harmony, this was a tragedy that threatened to silence even the most seasoned entertainers. But just days after Michael's death, Marie Osmond made an extraordinary choice. Rather than retreat into private mourning or cancel her public engagements, she stepped back onto the stage at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas, resuming her headlining residency with her brother Donny. It was a decision that many found astonishing, if not incomprehensible. But for Marie, it wasn't about escapism or obligation. It was survival. In an emotional interview with Entertainment Tonight, Donny Osmond gave the world a rare glimpse into the private moments that unfolded behind the stage curtain. "Our dressing rooms are right next door to each other," he explained. "I can hear her crying, and that hurts." He paused, visibly moved, before adding, "What's amazing is that just minutes after she's cried, she'll come out of the dressing room perfect and ready to go." This paradox, sobbing behind closed doors, then emerging into the spotlight with poise and brilliance, is more than a testament to Marie's professionalism. It is a reflection of her extraordinary strength. To those who know her, she is not simply an entertainer. She is a mother, a survivor, and a woman navigating unbearable grief with grace and grit. Donny's admiration for his sister runs deep. "I admire her," he said plainly. "She's been able to pick herself up and survive." In the eyes of the world, Marie may have been putting on a show. But in truth, she was choosing to live. Marie later offered insight into her decision to continue performing so soon after such a tragic loss. Her words struck a chord with grieving parents across the globe. "I had to choose to keep living for my other children," she shared. It was not a rehearsed line, nor a polished soundbite. It was the raw, unvarnished truth of a mother trying to stay afloat in a sea of sorrow. Michael Bryan had been adopted by Marie as an infant and had grown up under the unique pressures of being part of a famous family. Despite being surrounded by love, he struggled for years with mental health issues. Marie had spoken publicly about his challenges before, advocating for awareness and understanding around adolescent depression and anxiety. But nothing could have prepared her, or the family, for the devastating reality of his loss. The days that followed were filled with both silence and spotlight. Flowers flooded the Flamingo lobby. Fans left handwritten letters and memorials. The Osmonds, known for their polished image, let the world see their cracks, and in doing so, they gave others permission to feel their own grief more openly. But the stage, ironically, became a kind of sanctuary. In the lights, there was distraction. In the music, there was catharsis, and in the applause, there was a fleeting reminder that joy still existed somewhere in the world. Marie Osmond's return to the stage after the loss of her son stands as one of the most courageous acts of public resilience in recent entertainment history. It redefined what it means to be a performer in the face of tragedy. Her ability to carry both heartbreak and hope in the same breath resonated far beyond the Vegas Strip. The Osmond family, like all families, has known joy and suffering, but through the lens of loss, their bond has become even more apparent. Donny stood by his sister with quiet strength, offering her the support of a sibling who understood the stakes of the stage and the scars of real life. Together, they transformed their Las Vegas residency from a nostalgic revue into something far more powerful, a nightly act of courage. Marie's story serves as a reminder that grief does not follow a script. There is no correct way to mourn, just as there is no singular path to healing. But for her, the stage wasn't a betrayal of her pain. It was a lifeline, a place where she could feel something other than sorrow, if only for an hour. And in choosing to keep living, imperfectly, painfully, but purposefully, Marie Osmond didn't just honor the memory of her son. She became a beacon for countless others who needed to hear what she once told herself. You can survive this. You can stand again. Even when your heart is broken, you are still allowed to shine. A family in silent mourning, the Osmonds behind closed doors. The Osmond family, long regarded as an emblem of American showbiz wholesomeness, has experienced its fair share of public triumphs and private tragedies. But few periods have tested their resilience more profoundly than the events that unfolded in 2018, a year marked by heartbreak, solitude, and a deep redefinition of what it means to be a family under the spotlight. It began with a quiet tragedy that sent shockwaves through their tight-knit clan. In the early hours of one unassuming morning, Troy Osmond, the son of Merrill Osmond, Donny's older brother, passed away unexpectedly in his sleep at the family home in Utah. He was just 33 years old. There were no warning signs, no long illness to prepare the family for such a loss. One moment, Troy was there, alive, vibrant, full of potential. The next, he was gone. The suddenness of his death left the Osmonds stunned, grappling with a grief that words could scarcely contain. Donny Osmond, who had always maintained a public image of calm optimism, offered no lengthy statements or media appearances. He let the silence speak volumes. But those close to the family say Troy's death marked a turning point. For a family whose legacy was built on music, unity, and constant performance, the silence that followed was a striking departure from the norm. Tragedy, however, seldom travels alone. Later that same year, the Osmonds were hit with another devastating blow. Jimmy Osmond, Donny's youngest brother and former child star, was performing on stage in the United Kingdom as Captain Hook in a production of Peter Pan at the Birmingham Hippodrome when he suffered a stroke. He completed the performance without alerting the audience or his castmates to the gravity of his condition, a testament to his professionalism, but also a haunting reminder of the invisible toll fame can exact. The stroke was severe. Medical staff rushed Jimmy to a local hospital, and the prognosis was uncertain. The public, accustomed to the Osmonds' transparency, waited anxiously for updates. But this time, the family chose a different path. Jimmy made the decision to retreat entirely from the public eye. He ceased all public appearances, social media activity, and interviews. Access was granted only to his wife and children. Even Donny, his brother, his onstage partner for decades, was asked to keep his distance. Donny's response was dignified and deeply moving. On social media, he offered only a brief, heartfelt message. "Thank you all for your thoughts and prayers on behalf of my little brother Jimmy. I love you, brother." The restraint in those words spoke volumes. It was the voice of a man balancing his own pain with a profound respect for his brother's autonomy. Later, Merrill Osmond offered a glimpse into the family's internal reality in an interview with Express. "He's hurting pretty bad," Merrill admitted. "He's in the States, but doctors won't even let the family in on it yet. The severity of it, none of us know. It's the way his family wants it." There was no bitterness in his tone, only sorrow and understanding. "Jimmy has been through a lot, and he just wants to be all by himself right now. We're all giving him space." For a family that grew up in front of cameras, smiling through every high and low, this withdrawal felt almost radical. Jimmy's decision to isolate himself was not one of despair, but of self-preservation. In a world that expects public figures to perform, even in their pain, Jimmy Osmond stepped away, not just from the stage, but from the expectations that had defined his entire life. And in doing so, he redefined what courage looks like in a culture that often demands invincibility from its icons. Over time, it became clear that Jimmy would not return to show business. He had made peace with that chapter of his life, choosing instead to focus solely on healing, mentally, emotionally, physically. Friends describe his days now as quiet and intentional. Walks with his wife, time with his children, no scripts, no spotlight, just life. And the Osmonds, for their part, have shown what true familial love looks like, not in grand gestures or media campaigns, but in silence, patience, and unconditional respect. They stepped back. They waited. They let Jimmy heal on his own terms. It was perhaps their most powerful expression of love yet. In the shimmering history of the Osmond family, one filled with platinum records, sold-out arenas, and smiles that lit up televisions for decades, this chapter may not be the most glamorous, but it is undoubtedly one of the most human. Grief, withdrawal, compassion, and above all, the quiet strength of a family that knows when to step forward and when to let one of their own take the space he needs to survive.